Try it again. What could I really say about the upcoming United States presidential election that hasn't already been said ad nauseum at this point being 1 week from the election at time of upload? I don't know, but we're about to find out. So if you ask the American public what they think about this upcoming election, they might describe it as critical, pivotal, and all-encompassing moment where the person that we elect to office will be the deciding factor on a number of issues. And of course, there's no shortage of issues going around. We have choice rights, LGBTQ rights, gun rights, the economy, inflation, election integrity, immigration, and even beyond domestic policy, we have foreign policy, where we have the wars and conflicts overseas, how we are going to act on the world stage, and how we are going to interact with our partners and allies. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of stake, and depending on where you land on the political spectrum, highly dictates what you think is at stake. There's obviously a lot of tension and a lot of vitriol on both sides. And now, coming up in 2024, we of course have Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. But going back to a conversation that I had with a friend back in the 2016 election, where it was Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, the conversation was not about who was the better candidate, it was all about harm reduction. Who, in the next 4 years, would enact the least amount of harm to the American public, American democracy, and the American empire as a whole? You know, do you go with the conniving career politician who is the wife of a former president who had a number of blunders under his administration? Or do you go with the narcissistic billionaire who would go on to commit a well-documented pattern of crimes as detailed in the video from Legal Eagle that I will link down below? This is probably the best compilation video I've seen, just documenting all of the crimes from the Trump administration. So if you've ever wanted a condensed overview of everything that happened, this is definitely the video for you. But my reasoning at the time for saying that Hillary Clinton would enact the least amount of harm was that she was the corruption that we know. It would just be business and politics as usual. You more or less know what you're getting into, as opposed to someone who is getting into office surrounding himself with yes men, enacting policies that benefit him and his billionaire class. And that reasoning, for me personally, has stayed true for every election that Trump has been a part of, regardless if it was Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and now Kamala Harris. For me and my own personal politics, I'm not looking at those Democratic candidates thinking that they are going to enact the kind of change that I want to see. None of them are going to put a dent in the military-industrial complex. None of them are going to push for getting money out of politics. None of them are going to enact drug reform. They're not going to change the NSA spying on all of our communications. They're not going to change a lot of things. Are they going to tax corporations what they should be taxed? Probably not. Are they going to break up monopolies? Probably not. Are they actually going to do anything about lobbying? Probably not. Because again, it's business as usual. Now, had Trump actually quote-unquote drained the swamp, had he actually shaken up Washington to the point of actually enacting genuine positive change that affected the average American, instead of appointing judges to the Supreme Court that eventually overturned Roe versus Wade, which was one of his campaign promises, that he kept, along with another campaign promise that he kept, where he did in fact cut taxes. But again, looking at it, who was it for? It was for the ruling class. It was for the wealthy. So am I going to be thrilled if Kamala Harris wins the presidency? No, not really. Would I take that over a Trump presidency? Oh, most definitely. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to sit here and list off every gripe I have with Trump, but keeping it just to elections, since that's the topic of this video, one of the main reasons why Trump is not a fit candidate for the presidency is the impact he has had on American democracy. I could be wrong about this, definitely fact check it, but the first time Trump talked about the election being rigged was in 2016 when he won against Hillary Clinton. And that just laid the groundwork for everything that followed. What exactly followed? Dozens and dozens and dozens of court cases that Trump filed against various states and entities saying that the 2020 election was rigged in some way. We've all heard this countless times at this point, that there was cheating, that there was rigging, that the Democrats did something, whether it was mail-in ballots or the voting systems flipped the votes. Something occurred that made Trump lose in 2020. Again, he filed all of these court cases with Rudy Giuliani and Powell, and what happened with all of those dozens of court cases? They were thrown out. There was no evidence. There were even Trump-appointed judges that threw out these cases. Because again, there was no evidence. In fact, Chris Krebs is on record as saying it was actually one of the best elections we've ever had. And of course, Trump promptly fired him because again, that did not correlate with his beliefs and therefore he had to go. So of course, you have all of the court cases that went out. You had the fake elector scheme. And of course, at the end, we had January 6th and we all know what happened there. Shout out to Mike Pence for doing his job. And while we're on the topic of rigged elections and evidence, not a lot of people that I talk to know this, but Dominion Voting Systems, one of the leading voting system companies, they sued Fox News for defamation because of course you can't just say that a voting system company was rigging an election without maybe facing some kind of consequence. And Fox News settled that court case before it went to trial and paid literally hundreds of millions of dollars in that settlement. It was like $750 million paid to Dominion because again, they could not provide evidence in court that the election was rigged. And Dominion Voting Systems, within their investigation, they subpoenaed all sorts of people within the Fox News ecosystem. This included people like Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity, and it showed their personal texts going to the Fox News producers. The most worthy of note is in fact Tucker Carlson himself, where he literally called Donald Trump a demonic force. Like, I'm not making this up. You can just Google this yourself. And this, of course, led to Tucker Carlson being knocked out of Fox News because that was the price he paid. After Fox News paid that amount of money, he was the one that had to face some kind of repercussion, I guess. And again, I can go on and on about this kind of stuff, but it just goes to show the impact of lies. These lies have impacted American democracy. There are millions of people that think 2020 was an illegitimate election. And that's not the only topic that's like this. John Oliver just did a really good rundown of how the whole migrant crime issue is actually not an issue at all, and how the scenarios that various news organizations like Fox News cherry pick to run that narrative under the scrutiny of fact checking, turns out there's actually not a whole lot there. It's all just fear mongering because, again, immigration is a huge issue in this election. Jon Stewart even just did a whole bit on how Trump's rhetoric about the enemy within and what he would do with those enemies. It's always brushed over by people within the Republican establishment as, oh no, he's just talking about immigrants. He wasn't talking about anyone important. Juxtaposed with a video of Trump talking about, say, Nancy Pelosi. And speaking of fake news, Hank Green from Vlogbrothers actually just put out a video talking about how Elon Musk, with all of his tweets, he just keeps retweeting misinformation. Misinformation that, again, if you just fact check it, you would see that there's actually not a whole lot there. And last but not least, Climate Town, which is a wonderful YouTube channel all about climate change and the impacts that we are having on the environment. They actually just put out a really good video about the 2000 election that, again, was stolen, you might say, by the Republicans, because it definitely seemed like Al Gore had won that, and had he won, then maybe we would have more common sense climate policy, but we don't because of the actions taken by, again, the Republican Party. I'll go ahead and link all those videos down below. They're all very well researched and they're all top notch if you ask me. So yeah, like I said, I could go on and on about this topic, but I think I'll just leave it there. If you have any thoughts on this election, which I'm sure you do, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. If you agree or disagree with my analysis of Trump or Harris, go ahead and let me know that as well. Obviously, we took a break break this week from doing the Revolution reviews, but we will be back next week with another one. And speaking of Revolution reviews, so we recently did a impressions video for the new album from Lowkey, soundtrack to The Struggle 3. And again, to tie this all back to music, so Lowkey actually has a number of songs about US presidents. He has Obama Nation, talking about President Obama. He has McDonald Trump, talking of course about Trump. And now he has Genocide Joe, talking of course about Joe Biden. But for the purposes of this video, I will link the McDonald Trump song as it is a good critique of the Trump administration. And yeah, guys, I guess that wraps it up. So we will see where we are after this election has ended. It should be very interesting, to say the least. Alright guys, thank you again for watching. If you like the vibe, maybe like and subscribe. And until then, we will see you on the next one. Later.